What did I do this weekend? I watched Rome. That's it. That's all I did. And whenever a show makes me feel that slothful, it makes me feel okay with it, like just like sitting in my room only watching that show and doing nothing else for an entire weekend, I figure that's a show worth talking about. Rome. So Rome was a show on HBO. It lasted 2 seasons and that's it. Short story because it was an absurdly expensive show. Like twice as much as Game of Thrones kind of expensive. And since, you know, the entire world didn't watch the show, I guess not enough people watched it, so they had to cancel it. Doesn't mean it wasn't awesome. Now season 1 starts out when Rome was still a republic, Julius Caesar was running the show, and it pretty much deals with Julius Caesar's rise to power and Rome's transition from a republic to an empire. Now, so for all you people who thought Revenge of the Sith did it well, watch Rome and see how a republic really transitions into an empire. And I figure people out there should probably know how Julius Caesar's reign came to a complete and sudden stop, but for those of you who don't, I won't spoil it for you. Even though if you don't know, slap your history teacher. So season 1 ends right there, and for season 2 I was like, what can they do now? How can it be interesting? And it was, because there's so much stuff that happened after season 1. Now since you have to have a couple of characters who pretty much see the events as you see them, we have Ray Stevenson playing Titus Pullo and Kevin McKidd playing Lucius Vorenus. 2 friends who don't really start out as friends, but they're war buddies and they're friends. They're like the way more awesomely hardcore versions of R2-D2 and C-3PO. Alright, maybe kind of more hardcore than R2, but way more than C-3PO. R2's badass. The show really focuses on those 2, and it does a really good job at planting them in these really iconic moments in Roman history, but still keeping them out of history, you know, like it could have happened, but you know, it didn't. Might have. Lucius Vorenus is just hardcore, dude. Whenever Kevin McKidd's all like, you shut your fucking mouth, you know, you're like, alright, Vorenus is business. There's no way that guy will go on to be the journeyman. You can't help but like 90% of the characters, even the characters you're not supposed to like and you're supposed to hate, you kind of like sometimes. Like Mark Antony, you're not supposed to like him. He's a total douchebag asshole. But once in a while, he'll say or do something where you're like, that guy's awesome. Maybe I'm a douchebag asshole, I don't know. And all the women from my Facebook just now were like, yeah, you are. I love you too. There's this one kid in there, I was like, that kid must be someone. I didn't know who he was, but I was like, he's too awesome and smart to be just nobody. So I looked him up and I was like, he's that guy? That's awesome. Not gonna tell you who, but if you played Civilization 5, oh, you know. And yeah, it's on HBO, which means it's the most graphic show I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, more than Game of Thrones graphic. I mean, we're talking sex, violence, nudity. You can pass it off as, yeah, it's Rome. That's just how it was. Doesn't mean it's not in there a lot. So for those of you who stick to PG-13, might want to pass on Rome, but you'll be doing yourself a disservice. Yeah, it's really graphic. Now, season 1's pretty consistent. You're like, oh yeah, it starts out at A, it ends at Z. Season 2, there was something about it where I was like, dude, it skips years and doesn't tell you. And it's because season 2 pretty much encompasses what they wanted season 2, 3, and 4 to be. And it just kind of funneled it, and they were like, all right, well, that's just season 2. That's how we need to end the show. You see a couple things happen in season 2, and you're like, why did they even have that? And then you're like, oh yeah, they were probably setting up for season 3, but it just never happened. Like, I guess they wanted to bring Jesus into it in about season 3 or 4, and then this one setting the stage, it's like, oh yeah, Jews in Rome, all right, moving on. You're like, oh, okay. So that was that story arc that went nowhere. They wanted like an entire season to deal with Egypt and Mark Antony and Cleopatra. In season 2, it's like 2 episodes. So after that, it kind of depresses you. You're like, that would have been so awesome to see in the scope that they wanted to show it. But when you're watching the show and you just see the sets, you're like, yeah, this show was clearly canceled because of the budget. That's why I never watched Spartacus Blood and Sand, because I saw the previews and I was like, wow, that's a lot of CGI. In Rome, there's only a couple parts where I'm like, yeah, that's shot on a green screen. Usually it's this wide scope shot of like the water and boats and ships and things like that, because if Waterworld taught us anything, it's that shooting on water is expensive, I guess. The sets on Rome look every bit as legit as like Gladiator. This last weekend, I watched it for the first time in years. I felt like an asshole for not watching it every year. Rome is awesome-tacular. I'm telling you guys, you should watch it. If you like empires and republics and political scheming, it's not civilized culture. It's Rome. You should probably check it out. I'm just saying. So have you seen Rome? What did you think of it? And if you haven't seen Rome, what's your favorite show on HBO right now? Or ever? Comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.